Welcome to the Clearly Worthy podcast. Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey towards embracing your worthiness and creating extraordinary success? I am your host, Allison Lacusier, a certified professional coach, a professional speaker, and a female founder. As a passionate advocate for women's empowerment, I've dedicated my career to helping individuals like you unlock their true potential, cultivate unwavering confidence, and live a life aligned with their deepest desires. With years of experience in the coaching industry, I've witnessed firsthand the incredible transformation that occurs when we tap into our worthiness and step into our power. Throughout this podcast, I'll be your guide, sharing insights, tools, and strategies to help you navigate the path towards unshakable self-confidence and fulfillment. Drawing from my own journey as a successful business owner, I'll provide you with practical advice, actionable steps, and thought-provoking conversations with industry leaders. From overcoming self-doubt to setting and achieving audacious goals, we'll explore a wide range of topics designed to empower you to embrace your worthiness in every step of your life. Through these engaging interviews and solo episodes, I'll share my experiences, lessons learned, and wisdom gained from our remarkable guests who have achieved remarkable success in their respective fields. So if you're ready to leave self-doubt behind, step into your authenticity, and thrive as the empowered woman that you are, then this podcast is for you. It's time to claim your worth, align with your purpose, and manifest the success you desire. I'm thrilled to have you join me on this empowering adventure. Welcome to the Clearly Worthy podcast. Welcome to the Clearly Worthy podcast. I am your host, Allison Lacusier, and I am here with a phenomenal guest, speaker, mentor, coach, lecturer, Dr. Taryn MacCarthy. Welcome to the Clearly Worthy podcast.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I'm so excited about this conversation today.
Me too. I saw it in my calendar for the last couple of weeks, and I've just been looking forward to this because I have been impacted by you in the small amount of time that we have spent together. It's just tremendously impacted me. And I can only imagine what it's like to work with you, to be in your presence more often. And so today feels like such a treat to me as we get to dive into some of the really important topics that we're both seeing dentistry, women, professionals, coaches face today. So thank you for being here. And let me give you a formal introduction.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison.
So, Dr. Taryn MacCarthy is not just an orthodontist, she's a beacon of resilience and transformation. As a devoted mother, orthodontic practitioner, and business owner, Taryn intimately understands the challenges of balancing professional success with personal fulfillment. After years of striving for success in dentistry, she found herself trapped in a cycle of anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. The relentless pursuit of external validation left her feeling lost and disconnected from her true self. Determined to break free from this cycle, Taryn embarked on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. She courageously confronted her fears and insecurities, ultimately reclaimed her sense of purpose and joy, and through introspection and personal awareness, Taryn underwent profound transformation both professionally and personally. Today, she stands as a testament to the power of resilience and self-empowerment. By embracing her authenticity and prioritizing her own well-being, Taryn has not only revitalized her orthodontic practice, but also cultivated a deeper connection with her loved ones and herself. So I just love that bio.
That is beautiful. Thank you. That is so gorgeous. I receive all of that. Thank you. Thank you. That is really beautiful.
I made a practice to not introduce my guests with their formal bio, but when I read yours today, I'm like, this is magic. And the thing that I love about this, which is going to really kind of dive into the conversation we're going to be having today, is how authentic and vulnerable it is. I didn't just read a list of your accolades, although I know you have a lot. I read your transformation story, and it had to be vulnerable in order for me to fully understand who you are and how quickly I can understand who you are. So, today we're going to talk a lot about that and vulnerability and how do we show up as we are and experience what it's like to be a human being, which includes the pain and the discomfort and learning to sit with it. So share with me a little bit about, we talked a little bit as we were getting ready for our show today, the pain problem that we see in dentistry and in coaching.
Yeah, it's so interesting because one of the biggest discoveries I had in my personal development journey is how pain avoidant I was. I'm going to share a story with you, which was one of my first moments of insight. And this is outside of dentistry, but I have 3 kids, and my first 2 pregnancies, when I delivered my babies, they were very premature because I was in such a place of stress and burnout in dentistry that my body was just I was just washing my body with cortisol chronically and didn't realize it. And obviously, my body just couldn't hold on to these pregnancies. And because they came so early, when I went into the hospital, I hadn't had any classes or didn't know how to deliver. So they immediately gave me an epidural, and I didn't feel anything and delivered the babies. And both of my babies were born with these huge, massive hematomas, big bruises on their heads. And that was from me pushing so hard because I couldn't feel. I couldn't feel anything. I had no feedback. So I just kept pushing. I wanted to do a really good job.
Yeah. High performance pregnancy.
Yes. That's how we are in everything, right? The women who are high achieving women, especially in this industry, we want to do our best at everything. So I was going to push as hard as possible. And with my third pregnancy, I was so determined to feel that I didn't want the same outcome with those big bruises that I chose to deliver my baby naturally without any medication, without any numbing medicine. I chose to experience the discomfort and the pain. And in doing so, I learned so much about myself. I learned that I can be in pain and the pain will end. I learned that I can endure things that I never gave myself credit for being able to endure. I learned that when it was painful, I could ease on the pressure, or I could relax my muscles, or that pressure and tension of my muscles, the contractions, was a natural process. And when I didn't stress and prevent it, when I just allowed it, it eased a little bit. And I use that analogy because I think so much of what we do in dentistry is trying to get others and ourselves out of pain. And we miss that gorgeous lesson that we actually need to experience in the pain. And I'm talking about physical pain, psychological pain, emotional, all of it. I think we're very adept at relieving pain. It's one of our superpowers as dentists. And as coaches, that's our desire too. We want to see our clients thrive, but we also know that they have to sit in the discomfort in order to have the realization and the lesson that's available to them. And what I've come to recognize is that our pain is completely personal. It's unique to each of us. And we see this in our patients. No two patients feel pain in the same way. Like that palatal block or that palatal injection, rather, one patient can't handle and the other patient doesn't even feel it. But that message is important for each patient. There's a tolerance or a fear or an underlying limiting belief that is impacting the pain that we experience that's wholly unique to us. And I think so often in my life, I bypassed that lesson because I was so intent on alleviating the pain. For whatever needs to let me just take the pain away.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you ever had that experience in your life, Allison,
Oh
where
my gosh.
yeah, where you've just avoided feeling something and then it just perpetuated the same discomfort that eventually when you finally felt the pain, you could process through it?
Oh my gosh, so often. I would say I'm like a professional pain management person. Like I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm curious to know like why is it that this is
Mm.
a tendency? Because I think the listeners that are hearing the story probably really resonate with it.
Mm.
And my question is like why do we almost glorify always being good or always being fine or always being, yeah, everything's great. I'm just busy. Why is that glorified and why is that celebrated in our culture? And why is it that as humans, we feel the need to have the validation that we're always good or we're
Yeah.
not in pain when it's part of our human existence to experience pain.
Yeah, it's kind of
So,
the point of our human
yeah,
experience. That's the whole
yes.
point. And I know we're so averse to it. And I think another component, especially with dentists and hygienists and very, industry leaders and leaders of big teams, we're very capable. Like I can make it happen. If I have a desire, I know I can put things in place. And we have this kind of self belief often in ourselves, in our capability. And I think that that becomes a crutch when something feels uncomfortable. How can I fix it?
Yeah.
What am I going to do to fix it? I was speaking to a client this morning whose sister is struggling with alcoholism. And I know you and I have a shared history with addiction. And I was listening to her really trying to solve the problem for her sister.
Mm.
She's recognizing how much pain her sister's in. She's recognizing her life really hurting. She's recognizing things falling apart, her marriage falling apart. And she was like, so I'm thinking what I can do is I can text her husband and I can call what she found a program that she could go to. And she was like, and I lined all these things up and she just refuses to do them. And it's that same do more mentality. Like, how can I fix this problem that feels so uncomfortable because I know how to fix instead of giving myself the permission to just feel the discomfort of it, to just be sad for her, to just give ourselves permission to not be okay, like you just said. And I think that's one of the reasons why is because we are so capable. We
Mm-hmm.
can make things happen. And we use that as a strategy or a crutch because it is this avoidance of the discomfort.
100%. And I also think it's a little bit of like, you and I as coaches, we believe so strongly in like the empowerment and being able to create the life that you love and have your life be in this like beautiful, gorgeous way. And I think there's a problem with that in the sense of like we think we get to control it all. And I
Right.
think especially as women, like we are so empathetic and we're so giving and loving naturally, intuitively, innately. And so when someone in our life or something's happening in our life where we have to witness pain and we're like,
Yes.
wait, I'm empowered, I'm emboldened, I can do things to change this. And sometimes in life we just have to accept it, we have to surrender to the gift that the pain is giving us, but we don't want to. We absolutely do not want to. My therapist, she like just very lovingly calls me the firefighter because I come in to my therapy appointments with a strategy. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
here's what's going wrong. And here's a strategy in which I will employ to fix this person, change that mindset, change my
Yep.
own mindset. And she's like, no, that's not your job. And I do it anyways.
It's so cool too when you finally have that realization because all that stress of holding up all those responsibilities, when we give ourselves permission to just set them down, it like takes so much weight off of you. If I don't have to control my sister and my partner and my kids and my team and my patients, wow, like if I could just actually set that need to control all those circumstances down, suddenly I have a little bit more work-life balance, the magic the magic word that everybody wants, but not realizing how much we're putting on ourselves to hold up with that control, with that insistence of wanting to micromanage every component of our lives just to avoid the discomfort.
100%. And I think the thing we have to like if we're listening to this and we're thinking about this, why change? Like
Mm.
why stop trying to control everything? Why stop avoiding pain? Well, the emotional payoff that
Yeah.
we will receive is less stress, more joy, more
Yeah.
acceptance, less honestly, less stealing others' lessons. I
Ooh,
think as a
yes.
coach, the first like year of being a coach, I was stealing my clients' lessons because
Mm,
I wanted to hold them so gently through their pain. But
yeah.
I realized really quickly, wait a second, they're not learning if they're
Yeah.
not sitting in this for a little while.
Absolutely. And that really is taking away their autonomy, right? And that beautiful lesson that is only theirs to receive. And the really cool thing is we still get to hold space for people as coaches or as dentists or as leaders. We still get to be present and hold space for them. We just don't have to solve their problems for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only difference. And when you just asked why stop, a big component of what I'm hearing from the industry is exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about how much exhaustion is being contributed by this needing to hold up all the plates all the time and controlling and managing other people's emotions and including your own instead of just allowing for them to happen. Like, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to try to be all the things to all the people all the time and not feel your feelings, push down those emotions, and just power through. It's exhausting. It's energetically overloading. I think it really is one of the biggest components that's leading to burnout in our industry. I really do. I think it's this constant need to solve the problems and take others and ourselves out of pain.
Oh my gosh, I think that's so well said. And I think it's there must be a collective shift.
Yeah.
And I think as leaders and influencers, speakers, as leaders of a practice, we have to start being
Yes.
more vulnerable. We have to start being more like transparent in a sense, because I think part of the reason we think we have to hold all these things up and be that like superwoman, you know, to like solve all the problems is that we think that that's what one society expects of us. We're failing if we're not doing it. Oh, thank you, AI, for giving
I
me a
know. I
thumbs
love
up.
that.
um, and two, we're trying to feed our own sense of self-worth
Yeah.
by that these external, like in your bio it said exactly that, like these external circumstances that we can like manage and manipulate and handle, and so it makes us feel better about ourselves, but it will never truly fill us up. It's just
Yeah.
like we're putting out little fires all the time while burning ourselves out.
Yeah. And this whole idea of fulfillment is another area where allowing ourselves to fully feel our feelings is actually what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually how we get fulfillment. So that moment, I remember feeling like, I've got all these things. I'm a dentist, I'm a business owner, I've got the fancy car, the fancy house, I've got the fancy dogs. Why am I feeling so unfulfilled? All my dreams have come true. And a big component of it wasn't that I needed to balance things out. It was that I wasn't being present for any one of them when I was there in the moment. So when I was with my patient, I was thinking about being at home with my kids and resenting work because my kids were at home and I wasn't at home. And when I was at home, I was thinking about the Invisalign treatment plan I needed to create, and I wasn't being present with the story time. And so nothing that I valued felt fulfilling because I was absent, because I wasn't giving myself permission to be present. And a part of being present is allowing the full range of emotions, whether it's happy or sad or uncomfortable or angry. And I think often when we feel like, man, I just don't feel alive, I don't feel like I'm in purpose, it's because we're not allowing the uncomfortable emotions either. And we can't just push down one set of emotions. We can't just numb ourselves to the disempowering emotions that don't feel fun to feel. Because when we do, we limit ourselves from feeling the really wonderful, exuberant emotions as well. We can't have one
100%.
without the other. Yeah.
100%. And that like lack of presence, it's how we get to a place in our lives where we're like, wait a second, how did I get here? This is not what I wanted, because our alignment comes from learning from the pain and the discomfort. Like our pain teaches us that doesn't feel good. That's not right for me, or something's misaligned here. What can I learn from it? But if we're never allowing ourselves to feel that, we're like, that's fine. That's fine. Let's just keep moving along. We end up going on a journey to a place that we never wanted to go. And that's the moment where people say like, and then I had a breakdown, or and then I was
Yep.
in an abusive relationship, or then I was an alcoholic. And that's the moment where like it's not because it happened all at once. It's the consistent need to push away our pain so that we can't feel what's right and wrong for us as individuals. And it's so personal.
It's
We
so
all have
personal.
our own
It's
journey.
and pain becomes such a private personal professor in that way.
Mm-hmm.
In that this is my lesson for me. What hurts me and is uncomfortable for me is completely different from what it is for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that you just brought up that avoidance and how we end up somewhere where we didn't hope we would be because we've been pushing away that lesson. Especially, I know with my journey with alcohol, that was true because that is 100% one of the big reasons why I was using alcohol was just to avoid feeling feelings. That was
Mm-hmm.
it. It was to avoid feeling feelings and also a little bit of regulating my nervous system at the end of the day because I didn't know how to shut it down when I was going a million miles an hour. And
Yeah.
alcohol did it for me. But it was a great way to circumvent having to feel. It was a
Mm-hmm.
great way to connect with my husband without actually going into the emotions and finding true connection. We just both had a couple of martinis. There we go. but it
Yeah.
was not but it was not in alignment, and that's why it never felt fulfilling. Nothing felt fulfilling because it was so superficial.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And I mean, similar for me, I was in a relationship that wasn't good for me. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't right. But I would numb with a, glass of wine every single night. We would just kind of avoid it and overworking and committing
Yes.
myself. So I was so busy all the time that I couldn't really realize. And like we know the ends of these stories. Like we know if we continue down these paths that ultimately we're not aligned, we're not aligned. I always like to say like life gives us whispers. Like it's like,
Mm.
Nelson, this isn't working. And you're like, shh, Taryn, that's not working. You're like, I don't want to hear it. And then we hit a wall. And
Yes.
I think what I want for people to know and to have and to like learn is that you don't have to hit that wall to listen to your own alignment. But it does. It takes being uncomfortable in those moments.
It's that's the sweet spot. I've heard the same question over and over. Do we need to hit rock bottom to have that awareness? And I just don't believe you do. Because all it takes is permission to pause and to be present with yourself. That's it. And it's so uncomfortable. We're not used to that. We're totally not used
Mm-mm.
to pausing. We're so good at just go, 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 going. And we're also really uncomfortable with feeling feelings because
Mhm.
you mentioned work as a work is a great place to lose yourself and avoid emotions. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I love my work and I
Yeah.
can pour myself into my work at the detriment of really facing some emotions that need to be processed or some relationship awarenesses as you just shared with that beautiful example of your last relationship. I think that's another very common pattern that we see in our industry because it is so rewarding to help patients to see our businesses flourish, to use our creativity and see some beautiful things come from them. But really, the deeper awareness is in giving ourselves permission to pause
Mhm.
and allowing ourselves to recognize what really is important to me. And we can't know that without experiencing the pain. Yeah.
I love it so much. I think this message is so timely right now. And it's, when I was in the middle of my pain, you know, pain avoidance strategy, if you will, I was an expert at it. Someone asked me, Allison, what are you afraid to face?
Mm.
Like if you slow down and you look at yourself and your life,
Yeah.
what are you afraid to face? And I sat and I thought about that and I'm like, what? Like I'm afraid to face the past mistakes that I've made. I'm afraid to face, the misalignment that I currently experience. And what I realized going through that was the more we create a sense of like shame or guilt around what's happened, or we don't accept who we are, or we can't know that we're truly just worthy in our own selves and our own beings, no matter what's happened,
Mm.
then we're always going to want to run away from it.
Yeah.
And so, like, yes, there's a radical self facing, but it's also radical self love
And
when we
self
can do that.
acceptance. Yeah,
Yes.
radical self-acceptance of all the components, of all the colors, the
Hmm.
phenomenal, successful woman and the woman who's on her knees in the bathroom,
Hmm.
accepting it all because it's so beautiful when you witness it outside of yourself, right? It's so fun. It's like, oh my
You're like, great
gosh,
job. That's so
great
beautiful.
job. Yeah. Good job feeling your feelings and being
Yeah, you're
vulnerable.
so worthy. Like,
Yeah. And that's another great point. We were just talking about we're so reticent to share that vulnerable underbelly. And yet
mhm.
when we do, that's the point of connection.
Yes.
That's the magic that we recognize in one another. If we're constantly showboating all the successes, we lose that magical human connection that I think our inner child needs to see. I'm not
Hmm.
alone. And when you share your inner child with me, I realize, oh, I'm not alone and you're not alone. And we can see and witness one another. And that's when we really connect. That's when we really inspire one another and really impact one another in a bigger way. And so having that courage to really, as you said, accept and allow all components of ourselves. And I do think that a part of this is a responsibility that we all shoulder in terms of making that more apparent, making it more
Hmm.
familiar. Because right now in the industry, it's just unfamiliar. That's all. We're just not used to seeing it, which is why it feels scary. But I think the more that we, as industry leaders and as influencing people in the community, the more that we share that vulnerability and make it normal, make it familiar, the more that people will feel comfortable to come on out and say, okay, yeah, I'm hurting right now. And tomorrow I'm
Yes.
going to fly and I'm going to be the superstar on stage. And I can do both. I can
Yes.
be both. Yeah.
Yes. 100%. And like you recently heard my story of like just having a little bit of a fiasco when I was traveling, and I got bit by a bug, had an allergic reaction. And, my natural tendency, honestly, would be just, I'm not putting that on social media. I'm not talking about this. I'm not sharing this. But I had a 4 or 5 day back to back speaking event where I was sharing every moment and all the cool things I
Mm,
was up to. And there was this moment where I was like, wait a second, like, and I'm not going to share something that's really real and happening to me and scary. And I decided to share it. And I'm not gonna lie, Taryn, I was terrified. Like I was like,
I'm sure.
like this doesn't feel like me. I don't want to be one of those people that's complaining on social media. But I was like, but this is what I'm going through. And I
Mm,
have to let you know, like the amount of love and support and kindness and messages from people that I would never even think would
mm,
send me messages and kindness and support came to me. And I didn't feel so alone.
mm,
And so it's important right now because I think a lot of us are on social media. We're connecting with each other
mm.
virtually in many ways, but in some ways we're connecting, but without the substance. So it's just
Yes.
kind of perpetuating this narrative that everyone's doing great except for you, and nobody needs help except for you. And I don't, that's just not true. And so I
No.
think you're right. There's a collective responsibility to just be as we are more often. And I think as a coach or as a doctor, as a leader, we have this like responsibility of always being in control, in charge, like
Mm,
capable, or, and yes, we do. And we're still human beings who have
yeah.
human experiences.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. And that's really what we're here for. Are those
Hmm.
experiences. I mean, really at the end of the day, those are the things that we're here for. And those are the times that offer us not only the biggest lessons, but the greatest growth. It's so easy to look back over the trajectory of your lifetime and that saying hindsight is 2020 and you say, "Oh, that happened for a reason. And I was so sad I didn't get that job, but now I see there was a better job around the corner. And then my parents got divorced and I was so upset about that, but now I see they're so much happier with their new spouses." And we can look back over our trajectory and witness all the lessons and the purpose along the way. And there's something so empowering to allow yourself to surrender to things just playing out,
Hmm.
just allowing that trajectory, which, by the way, is going to happen whether or not you effort or try to control it anyway.
True. It's true.
It's going to happen anyway. So we might as well just lay it down and surrender to the way. The
Mm-hmm.
way knows the way, and we don't have to figure it all out. We don't have to have all the answers. And I think sharing our stories is a part of taking that path authentically, sharing the vulnerabilities and the discomforts and being okay with sitting in the pain and being okay with canceling your speaking engagement because you were in pain and being okay with canceling a day of patience because you're in pain. You know, I'll tell you another thing that I learned in my experience in practice is that I lived my entire life up until last March with migraines. And if any of your listeners have migraines, I'm talking the blinding, vomiting, can't smell anything, extreme migraines. And I had about 9 to 14 a month. And the closest
Gosh.
people in my life knew, but my patients had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
My team knew, but I was very good at power. There, I did not miss a single day of work because of my migraines. Not one. And I was, eventually taking some really heavy medication to numb the pain. You hear me saying the words to numb the pain, and it worked, and I could power through the day. And it's so interesting, Allison, when I had this awareness of what the migraines were serving, how the migraines were serving me, I remembered talking to my husband years ago and saying, the one thing about my migraines that's really good is when I take this medication, I can only focus on one thing at a time. I can only, because they literally prevented a lot of recall, couldn't do a lot of multitasking. I was like, it's kind of nice. On the days I have my migraines, I go to work and I'm present with one patient. I'm not trying to multitask and do emails. And then I just sit, I don't try and effort, and I take a little nap at lunch because I'm feeling, uncomfortable because of the medication. And actually, those days that I have migraines are kind of chill, they're kind of nice. And I look back at that now and I realize, oh my gosh, my migraines were literally my body's way of teaching me a lesson to say, slow down, slow down. And for 40, how old was I? 46 years. Okay, maybe I didn't get them when I was an infant. I think I started when I was about 16. So for 30 odd years, I was so hell bent on pushing through the pain, on numbing the pain, that I didn't pay attention to the lesson. And the moment I realized, wait a minute, my body's trying to stop me from overdoing, I was able to take care of myself and literally don't get another migraine. I've not had a migraine since last March because of this realization. But
Wow.
now it takes conscious, like, no, 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 take care of yourself. Don't try to overdo everything all the time. But it was that lesson that I was so blind to for 30 odd years, where my body was just saying, well, I'm going to slow you down. And I think we see that often in our profession too, where people start saying in their 40s, 30s, 40s, say, my body's giving out on me.
Yeah.
Because when we don't say no, our bodies say no.
Yeah.
and that and that is extremely uncomfortable, but there's a lesson there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. It's and for anybody that's listening to this podcast, like I highly encourage you as like you're listening to this, just like feel into your body right now and ask like, is there anything my body's trying to tell me? Is there anything that's been happening recently that's like you're annoyed with it or you're frustrated with it? You're trying to push it away, but it's really a lesson because that's I think all we really get to do. And so I would love to hear what are some like strategies that we could take in order to like maybe not even a strategy because that's like that takes efforting, but more of a mindset around stepping into our pain or allowing our pain more often. Like how do we shift from going, blinders on, pushing forward, ignoring everything to, all right, this is scary, but I'm going to start. I'm going to listen. I'm going to you know, take the time to really just allow this? Like, how do we start down that path?
you know it's funny, the answer I have is ridiculous because it's so This comes from a deep knowing of the people I'm talking to right now. The high achieving women, incredibly capable, brilliant um, women who are taking care of everyone else and healing everyone's pain and taking pain away from everyone else all the time. I find that just simply saying, give yourself permission to sit with your discomfort is sounds really nice. And that really is what we need to do, but it's difficult to put into practice. So, one of the things I know about myself is if I don't put it on my calendar, it's not going to happen. If I
Yeah.
don't schedule it in, it's not going to happen. So, I literally schedule in time for me to sit with myself, not my cell phone, not my social media, not my, maybe a journal, maybe some beautiful music. And I allow myself to just give myself permission to be okay with the way I'm feeling that day. Sometimes I feel phenomenal and it's wonderful. And sometimes I feel sad. And I give myself permission to be sad. And sometimes it's hard to reach for an emotion when you've been pushing it away so often. So I do love music and I use music for that. So if I know, my friend is going through a really hard time right now. I have a friend who's going through a breakup and I'm feeling really sad for her. But I keep trying to fix, send her things, make her feel better, what can I do to make her feel better? And I realize, oh, wait a minute, that's actually my sadness too. I'm sad. I'm sad for her and I'm sad at the situation. I'm sad, it's bringing up some sadness from me from past relationships. So I literally will make a time for myself, and I don't need a ton of time, but maybe half an hour where I'll sit. One of my favorite places is there's this river between my orthodontic practice and my home that I found on my drive home, where I'll literally give myself half an hour, turn the music on, and just allow myself to feel sad. And then once I've processed it, I can put that down. And then now I can go home and be present for my kids, or now I can be present for that conversation with her, but I'm not trying to effort or solve or fix her anymore. I can just hold space for her because I've given myself that time and space to process emotions. I think it's I think it's challenging when you haven't done that, when you haven't practiced that for decades to
Yeah.
feel your feelings. And so I think that's why I like things like music or journaling. For me, if I just lose myself in free writing, just journaling, then I can get my emotions out more that
Mhm.
way. I don't know, what's
I love
your
it.
what's your favorite way for processing emotion?
Yeah, I think for me, the first thing I had to change was not always being like, oh, I'm a learner. I love to learn. I love to listen to podcasts. I love to, have things in my ear while I'm doing things. And so for me, the first step, which was actually really hard for me, was to stop always filling my brain or my mind with information.
Yeah.
And so it was actually kind of excruciating for me to like not listen to a podcast or not listen to my
Yeah.
online course or not listen to the audiobook that's like getting me
Oh,
better.
I totally get that. Yes.
And just actually going for a walk without my headphones
Yeah.
or
Or
sitting with my
driving.
yes.
Just driving without turning anything on or calling anyone.
Yes, and
Yes.
it was excruciating for me at first because I was so used to like, oh, put my audiobook on, I'm doing the good thing, I'm a high achiever, I'm
Mm,
multitasking, I'm filling my time effectively. But it was actually just in the spaciousness and
yeah.
in the like quiet that I started to ask myself questions like, Alison, how do you feel?
Yeah.
What do you want? Who are you now? And giving myself just space to be like, I don't know, but
Mm,
let me just give myself some presence to learn and understand. And that's where like my wisdom came from. And so
yeah.
I recognized for a long time I wasn't allowing myself to have wisdom. I was just allowing myself to have knowledge and often new knowledge and other people's knowledge. But we have such a wisdom inside of us, inside of our own
Yes.
knowing, that is it's more powerful than anything you're going to learn. And it takes that like pain and
Mm,
handling and facing those emotions to actually hear it. And so I think it's letting yourself get quiet and
absolutely.
like you said, give yourself like the put it in your schedule. What gets scheduled gets done is my
Yeah.
like mantra. But just maybe practice to have yourself be in a quiet space and just gently, lovingly, when I close my eyes for a meditation, it's the first thing I like really feel or recognize is like almost like a hello, like, oh, hi, there you
Mm,
are.
welcome
This is,
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is where we are right now. So it's,
And meditative process, that the practice of meditation also gets you there in terms of that allowance to
mhm.
return to being present, because that's the monkey mind, right? We keep going back to, oh, and I've got to get this ready and I got to do this, and it's that return, coming back to that hello that you just mentioned, and that honoring yourself for that wisdom, because the wisdom is so unique to you. It doesn't belong to anybody else. It's a compilation of all the knowledge that you've acquired and experience, but it's also such a beautiful amalgamation of your history and your experiences and the wounding and the pain that you've experienced that only you can know. That only you can know. And then bringing that forward into that greater wisdom is so empowering.
Mm, so well said.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I feel like my like brain and my heart have just like had like a massage just
I
talking to you
know.
and spending
So
time with
fun.
you.
I
Uh,
don't think we talked about
so
anything we were planning on talking about, but that's okay.
I don't think so. I think it's always those are always the best podcasts. And I think, if you're listening to this and this like message is resonating with you, like that's the action from this is just almost inaction.
Yeah.
It's going to just sit, be present with yourself, allow for that pain. And Taryn, as we wrap up, I want to honor you because you're such a beautiful example of this for us and for me and for so many other people in our industry of being and owning that high achieving, high powered, successful, confident woman who shows herself as she is and shares her journey and shares her ups and downs and then also shares the lessons that you have for yourself with so many others. And I know it takes courage and it takes vulnerability. And I want to honor you so much for just being this presence to us in our industry.
Oh, thank you, Allison. And let me honor you as well, because this is everything. This is doing the work, is bringing these stories to our community and making it more familiar. So thank you for honoring the value of that. It's everything.
Mm,
It's everything.
it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, how can my listeners connect with you? How do they learn more about you? Where can they go to get more Taryn in their life?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. You are always welcome to find me on the Business of Happiness podcast. So here we are talking about pain. I welcome you to the Business of Happiness podcast, where we talk about pain too. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
I love it. So go and check her out. I'll put this in the show notes. Click the link below to go and connect with Taryn, listen to her podcast. And again, Taryn, thank you so much for being on the Clearly Worthy podcast today.
Thank you, Allison. Have a fabulous day.
Too.